What's good, everybody, and welcome to an episode of the Is podcast with your host, yours truly, Jai Shields, here on this Tuesday, March the 19th, the year 2025, and we got a lot in store for you here on today's show. Bengals finally, thank the good Lord above. Jamar Chase and Higgins are signed, sealed, and delivered. I give you my 2 cents on them getting their big payday within the span of the last 72 hours, give or take. March Madness officially begins on Thursday afternoon at 12 o'clock, unofficially begun last night with the first four, what was a thrilling game in the first 6:40 window on Tuesday night. We'll get to that, obviously, in the fallout of Selection Sunday and even the conference tournament action that took place in the last week or so while we were away in between shows. NFL free agency, lots to discuss with that. Everything from the Seattle Seahawks and them changing their offensive roster within a span of a few days, from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold, from the likes of DK Metcalf to Cooper Kupp and everything in between. We'll get into it as the show progresses. Also, MLB, the Tokyo Series, as the Dodgers start their 2025 campaign off on the right foot. 2-0 record to begin the affairs in the 2025 season, with them sweeping the Tokyo Series against the Chicago Cubs halfway around the world. Also, some notes regarding the two teams in the American League East between the Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles. So lots to do with Major League Baseball, as opening day for everyone else is T-minus about 8 days away, and March Madness. And then who can forget the National Football League is always there to steal headlines. Well, if you're wondering why I should say this show is by visual component through YouTube instead of the traditional form of it being via audio, the traditional podcast, medium of distribution, well, having some issues with Spotify. It's been a whole mishigas about Spotify and me trying to get through so I can do the show the way I traditionally want to do it, which is audio first and then video, second, if, when appropriate. But instead, I'd figure, let's have a video component this week. If it happened, a month ago, I would say, to hell with it, and we'll jump right back on once we get the situation with Spotify taken care of. But because it's the 19th, I want to do a show Monday, want to do a show Tuesday, especially in the aftermath of the weekend last week with T and Jamar signing. I did not want to have that story essentially become null and void and be, 2 days into the NCAA tournament before I give you my 2 cents. So with my team, with the long-awaited off-season contract extensions with the wide receivers, throwing March Madness, throwing the unofficial start of the baseball season within the last 48 hours, and then we're less than a week away from actual opening day, which is next week on the 27th, next Thursday. And speaking of which, we will get Urinating Tree on. First time we've had one in a long time. We'll get him on to discuss everything regarding NFL free agency, the draft forthcoming, and more importantly, his 2 cents on the upcoming 2025 MLB season. So that's just a programming note. That's the first thing, but also to coincide, yes, we're here video on the YouTube airwaves for everyone, coast to coast, Mr. Worldwide renowned. This, not me, but the YouTube platform is. So if you somehow made it to the Tokyo series and you want to say, I wonder what that guy Jai Shields has up his sleeves in terms of his commentary on the latest around the world of sports, well, now you know, now you have it. So as a result, I basically have to make sure that all my I's and T's are dotted physically, so I can't take a pause, or I can, but, I can't, run off mic and go grab tissues if I got to blow my nose. So I got the tissue standby right here. I got 2 bottles of water, one right there that's unopened, one right there that is opened. My bracket, I do the electronic bracket, but something about filling out a paper bracket never gets old. My iPad has got my show sheet. Oh, can't see it. iPad's got the show sheet and all my information and stuff I got to have on there. If you're wondering why I got the Coach Prime sunglasses on, it's because in the way in which my My studio slash bedroom is created. My desk where I record at is facing to where you can probably see it through the reflection of my glasses. The window is like right there. And not to mention, I got my LED light that's right in front of me to provide extra lighting so there's no shadows. And as a result, put on a pair of sunglasses. But just in case I got to read something, I got one pair of glasses, and then these are my Ray-Ban Malcolm X's, and then these are my Armani Exchanges. And I still got to get my beloved Oakleys fixed that I broke when I was over at our buddy Brendan's house that Thursday night of Eagles and Commanders, whatever day that was. I think it was like the Thursday before Thanksgiving. I was over his house, and I had my arms folded, and I had my glasses in my shirt like this. And I went and I leaned over and I heard a snap, and I was like, oh shit. And so now I got to get, and they've been broken ever since, but I just haven't had the time with school and everything else to get them fixed. But I got to get those fixed because also those are nice transitions, and I like to wear those on cloudy days where the sky is bright, but it's not, necessarily sun shining a whole hell of a lot, if that's even a word. But yeah. So for those of you that are wondering, if you haven't seen the videos that I've done, I think I've uploaded ones with Professor and Pete Simonetti of NLY Underground. Happy birthday to him, by the way. He had one within the span of the last few days. But so if you've been wondering what my quote-unquote home setup looks like, there you have it. You got the Maryland State flag with my high school emblem, AC, Archbishop Curley, class of 2020. Shout out to them on the corner of Sinclair and Irvin right there. You got my Orioles little banner type thing that's got the history of the team's logos from. There's my camera shakes. I got this. The thing is, my dad gave me this office chair that I like, but the problem is that the armrests are too big for this desk that I had, and this is the desk that I had when I was living in that godforsaken shithole down at 1324 Cold Spring Lane. So I still have the desk. I wiped it, disinfected, soaked it down with some iodine before I brought it up to my compound studio here. But the thing about this chair, you can't see it, but the handles are too big. So when I scoot in, it gets stuck underneath the desk. And then when I got to slide out, it takes a while. And then the desk jars and everything. But anyway, so you have the number one fan, which I am of the Orioles, no matter how much they frustrate me, the AJ Green fathead. And then you have the frame that says 2021 AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals that my brother and sister Ian and Zoe got for me for my 20th birthday that ensuing spring of 2022. I got the little motivational gray frame, dreams don't work unless you do, and then another AJ. Why I got two AJ Green fatheads of the same pose, same image. I mean, I have no idea. My autographed Bengals cap that I got of the '07 Bengals, everyone on there but Chad Johnson and Carson Palmer that signed that, by the way. And then I got the Bengals little thing up there, and then in that corner, as I try to be, the black Vanna White over here. That's my high school varsity football senior portrait, if you will. And then over here, I don't know if you can see it through the reflection of my glasses, but I got NFL football, NFL 100. Nothing unique. It's just the unmodified game ball for that. And then I won't take it out because it's too much work and too much time, and I got too much to talk about, but I also got my Cincinnati Bengals helmet sitting there right there in the case, and I got my bobbleheads, all of them right here. I won't bother to show you again for the sake of time, but I got my bobbleheads, my Brian Roberts, Melvin Moore bobblehead I've had since I was about 4. I got my Manny Machado garden gnome that's missing his bat. I got a Cam Newton. It shows you how old this one is. This Cam Newton Charlotte Hornets bobblehead. I randomly, around this time back in 2017, I went to a Wizards and Hornets game, and ironically enough, it was Cam Newton bobblehead night, so I have that. I got Manny Machado Platinum Glove, Zach Britton Reliever of the Year bobblehead, Jim Palmer All Orange throwback version bobblehead, Eddie Murray bobblehead, which I got 2 Augusts ago during '83 championship night against the Mets. I got the Tony Santander City Connect walk off celebration bobblehead, which I got June 1st of last season. I was actually, as you guys know, at that game, which he hit that home run that was at his shoe tops. I believe was it off Clark Schmidt? I'm not sure. It was a him or Tommy Canley, one of the two. Home run he hit in a nothing game, bottom of the ninth inning, one of the best regular season games I've ever been to. Well pitched game between Garrett Cole and Grace Rodriguez. Got to get to Garrett Cole and Grace, as a matter of fact, later on in the show. And I got a Corbin Burns bobblehead, which I got last August, Friday night, which we played the Red Sox, the night that I had the privilege to meet Mad Dog Sports Radio host Adam Shine, and then there's some photos me sitting at what was Buck Showalter's desk back during Fan Fest of 2017 or 18, one of those years. And I got a Christmas card from Mad Dog, portraits of my brother and sis, like little photographs like that. I got a thing that says on the top of my door, Baltimore Orioles Clubhouse, which I've had since I was like a little kid. Poster of me and Ian when we played Little League. That's over 10 years old. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And then I got a notepad right here. So gave you a nice little room tour, if you will. But anyway, spend enough time, about 10 minutes in. Let's jump right into it. Finally, my Cincinnati Bengals woke up, smelled the coffee, locked in, and got serious. Thank you. Somebody within the front office, the Blackburn Brown family, Duke Tobin, they all woke up and got a clue. Now, listen, am I going to take credit a la Mike and the Mad Dog bringing Mike Piazza to New York? No, I'm not. But I do take solace in the fact and in the idea that my football team got off their ass and decided to get serious and to not fart around and play with fire and piss off their high-end talent in T. Higgins and in Jamar Chase. I really am. And why I went to my phone is that I wanted to show you guys that let me unplug it just so I can show the camera. That when I put, and I do this all the time, if I have like a rant about an athlete or directed at an athlete, and even organizations, I'll tag them. And more often than not, rarely do I look and see who saw it. It'll actually show the athlete or the team that looked at my story when I tagged them. But the irony of Jamar Chase seeing it, and I had just like uploaded it for like a good hour, give or take, and I tagged he, and I tagged T Higgins, and I tagged them both, and I was like, yeah, they're gonna quote unquote see it, but not really see it because they get tagged probably all day and night all over social media, especially Instagram. What are the odds? T Higgins, Jamar Chase is going to see it. Now they see it, like if they post something and I repost their post, it'll come up. Oh, Trey Hendrickson saw. Oh, Sam Hubbard, Jamar Chase. Not the first time he's seen. So he and I think T Higgins maybe once. The one that doesn't is Burrow. We know that. Evan McPherson knows who I am. Sam Hubbard knows who I am. Trey Hendrickson knows who I am, at least on the bare surface level of knowing that my Instagram account exists. Jamar knows, T knows, Burrow, he don't know. Mixon knows, former Bengal. Those guys know. Burrow, don't even know I exist. But so I put that out there and I tag them. And then I see, it's like, oh, wow, how about that? And then, because as you guys know, I was at my complete wit's end with my football team. You cannot, under any sets of circumstances, go into 2025, have Joe Burrow pissed off, and have your football team, at least on the offensive side of the football, be weaker this season than it was compared to last, and then have the expectation that you're going to do better than 9-8. Before I even get to the minutia with the contracts, the idea that the Cincinnati Bengals are idiots, fools, jackasses, don't know their asses from the elbow, they're clueless. What are you doing? Did they overpay? Which in theory they did because they waited too long. But again, that's not T and Jamar's fault. That's the Bengals front office's and ownership's fault. But anyway, I digress. They have no idea what the hell they're doing. This is why the Bengals never win. This is a joke. What a disgrace. Oh, the defense is going to be pathetic. This, that, and the third. Let me break a few things down for you guys. Okay, first off, if you just watch the Bengals defense throughout the course of the 2024 season, you realize that it can't get any worse than what it was last year. Like, it can't get any worse. And if you want me to, I'd be very happy to. I'd be very happy to go through the laundry list of 17 games that the Bengals played this season, and you can count on one lone hand how many times the Bengals put up an NFL level appropriate defensive performance for a complete game. You could count on one hand. Off the top of my head, I give you two. The last game of the season against Pittsburgh and week number 6 or 7, mid-October, Sunday night against the Giants. And even in the aftermath of those games, and I had this belief on record at the time when those games were played, the Steelers win last week of the season, that Saturday night, and then the Sunday night win against the Giants, and how well, quote unquote, well the defense looked that night, that had more to do with Danny Derps and the Giants' ineptitude on offense, and Russell Wilson being shot, and George Pickens out there just not giving a damn, more so than they had to do with the great legendary Cincinnati Bengals defense and Coach Lou. I said it at the time, and I had that belief now. Those are the off the top of my head. But you got to either be a fool, ignorant, or just be a flat-out Bengal hater to the point where you're oblivious to how this football team works, how this football team operates. The Cincinnati Bengals, for better or for worse, are not a defensive team. Okay? Since Joe Burrow has been in the league, they have never been a defensive team. They haven't. They are about offense. They are about their method of winning football games on a week in, week out basis is to strictly outscore their opponent. And when it comes to how the defense plays and stopping the other opponent from scoring, they let the chips fall where they may. They are about scoring. If you've watched the Bengals play since Joe Burrow's been in the league since 2020, and if you watch the years in which their Super Bowl window has been open since 2021, you know that the Bengals are, and you look at the numbers too, the Bengals are one of the more pass-heavy offenses in the National Football League. They have been. Partly it's because of who the quarterback is, and the other half of it is who the coordinator is. Zach Taylor comes from that Sean McVay coaching tree. The Sean McVays, the Kevin O'Connells, the Zach Taylors of the world, they don't run the football a whole hell of a lot. You won't watch their games and mistake them for the Eagles and the Ravens for how much they run the football. They don't. Those guys are a run-first offense. The Bengals, with our head coach, with our offensive scheme, they are not a run-first offense. They are a pass-first offense, which I have been on record many a times in critiquing and saying, hey, you got to get more balance. You got to be able to run the football more and more effectively. But my opinions on the offensive scheme for the Bengals be damned. As of right now, they are who they are. So unless people expected the Cincinnati Bengals to have the best run offense, rushing offense in the National Football League, paying T. Higgins wasn't an option. From a pure football standpoint, paying T. Higgins was not an option because the Bengals were not going to turn Chase Brown into Walter Payton in the span of one offseason. That's not how Zach Taylor operates. That's not how he coaches. That's not how his offense has been. They like to throw the football 30 times at minimum. At minimum. And if possible, they got no problems throwing, much to my dismay, but they have no problems throwing the football 35, 40, 45, hell, sometimes 50 times in a game if they have to in order for them to win. So the idea that the Bengals made upset the football gods by signing T and Jamar at the same time is absolute hogwash. Hogwash. And I also heard the commentary. Well, they gave out $200+ million. I heard this from our old friend of the show that was on 5 Augusts ago. Shout out Evan Cohen. Heard this from him on his show and on Twitter. Well, the Bengals gave $200+ million to make their QB happy, not to get closer to a title. What? Before they say, oh well, they paid it just to make them happy. Well, if Burrow's happy, then the rest of the team is happy. The team goes how Burrow goes. Now, is it great that the Bengals had to essentially pay more than what they would have paid last season or in the offseason prior to get T and Jamar extended? Yes, absolutely. I'm not going to fight you on that. Not at all, not at all, not at all. But you can't put the genie back in the bottle, number one. And number two, you can't cry over spilled milk. The Bengals, and I heard this all the time, and it low-key drove me nuts. Well, the Bengals are dumb, and, the Bengals, you can't really compare them to the Eagles and this, that, and the third because of the idea that they waited and waited and waited and waited and waited, and they look like idiots. Therefore, I get it. The Bengals are dumb. The Howie Roseman's Jesus Christ, I get it. And I'm not absolving the Bengals or excusing them for continuing to kick the can in practice in either insanity, stupidity, or giving them an excuse or an alibi because I'm not doing that. Never have done that as recently as the last episode. Not doing it now. But the fact of the matter of it is they're signed. So, at the end of the day, as long as they got it done, which they did, you're bitching and moaning. You can only do so much before it just becomes a moot point. That's like somebody that sits around on their ass all day. I'm hungry. And you say, yeah, you're hungry. And then all of a sudden they get fed a full course, get fed a Thanksgiving Day dinner type meal. And then we're still talking about, 2 hours after the meal has already been eaten. Oh, well, I was so hungry all throughout the course of the day. Yeah, we get that, but you're fed now, so what difference does it make? We take it as it is. Thank the Lord that you got fed, and then shut the hell up and move about your business and talk about something else. But it drove me crazy. Oh, if the Bengals, all they did it to keep them happy. Well, when Joe Burrow's happy, the chances of the Bengals winning increases. At least that's how I look at it. Burrow's happy, Burrow's satisfied, the chances of the team winning and being successful goes up. At least that's how I look at it in my book. You may disagree, but that's how I look at it. Because I don't think the chances of the Bengals winning goes up when Joe Burrow is pissed within the organization. Pissed at an op, that's one thing. Pissed within the people that make up the team that he plays for, something entirely different. And if the Bengals wanted to play with that fire, they would have gotten burned and burned badly. The fact of the matter of it is, to hell with what I want. Joe Burrow wanted Jamar and T. Higgins to stay. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. To hell with what anyone on ESPN thinks, what the people on NFL Twitter, people that make up the fan bases of other teams. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the 20 other fan bases think. Doesn't matter what the people on sports television, sports radios, podcasts think. Doesn't matter what I think. Fact of the matter of it is, Joe Burrow wanted T and Jamar on the team for the next 4 or 5 seasons. That's it. Well, once Burrow makes that abundantly clear, everyone else's feelings about should they trade him, should they get, all of that is out the window. Means nothing. He wanted him to stay. And if he wants him to stay because he believes their chance of winning a Super Bowl increases with them staying on the roster for the foreseeable future, then you know what? You got to take him at his word. Take him at his word, give them the money they deserve, and find a way to build a championship-level roster somewhere else. Because the Bengals are not going to win themselves a Super Bowl. What do you think? They were going to get better? Unless Aaron Donald's coming out of retirement, Ray Lewis is going to hop in a time machine and all of a sudden get 15 years younger. Same with Ed Reed. He was going to come out of retirement too. Reed Blankenship, Cooper DeJean with free agents, throw in TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. Unless those guys magically came out of retirement, hit the free agency market, or aged themselves backwards 15 years, the Bengals were not going to use the money they had for teams. They were not going to use that to revamp and overhaul their offense in one lone offseason via free agency. They weren't going to do it. So you know that going in, wouldn't it just be better just to keep the camaraderie and just to keep that continuity and to keep, again, your quarterback happy? His 2 favorite targets, that when they're both on the field balling at the same time, the Bengals' winning percentage and winning odds goes up through the roof tenfold. Rather than when 1 or 2 of them doesn't play, it's kind of, and when both of them don't play, goes in the toilet. Why? Because you know the game of football, defensive coordinators got to pick their poison. Okay, how do we team up and cover Jamar on this play? How do we cover Jamar in the middle, in about, 45, 50-yard line, doesn't matter which side, on 3rd and 8? How do we game plan against Jamar and T? Bengals are running shotgun inside the red zone on 2nd and 3rd and goal. Who gets targeted on the goal line fades in the backhand corner of the end zone by the far pylon? Who do we pay attention to start the game first? T, because the matchups say X, 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 Y, and Z? Or do we look at Jamar Chase to start because he's the best wide receiver in football? When you put both of those guys out there on the field at the same, that's what keeps defensive coordinators such as Steve Spagnuolo up at night. It's not just the fact that Joe Burrow's quarterback. Who is he throwing the football to? And those 2 guys are out there on the field. Listen, we see it with Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, for crying out loud. Now, we can sit up here and debate Howie Roseman, this, that, and the third. Fact of the matter of it is, whether you Eagle fans want to admit it or not, those 2, not individually, but as a tandem, those guys are as even neck and neck as it gets. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. There's not that big of a gap in between between those 2 sets of wide receivers head to head. And then the Eagles, the wild card with them is that unlike the Bengals, they know how to run the football, and they got one of the best running backs in the sport doing it for them. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? If the Bengals had the Eagles' brains and geniuses from the front office down to their offensive play callers, the Bengals would have about a ring or 2 at this point. So the Eagles can do it, and yet the Bengals can't. Now I get it. Eagles are the Eagles. They want some, but put 2 and 2 together, people. There's an example and a precedent that has been set, and the Bengals do what any other team does when they see a successful organization within their sport. They see, they found a way to make it work, and it's paid out well for them effectively. Let's see if we can do the same thing. You can't hurt them for trying. Again, what we're going to do? Take the money and go out there. Lawrence Taylor is not an active NFL player, let alone free agent in 2025. Aaron Donald is retired. He ain't coming back. That soccer goalie gave up a goal or whatever. So J.J. Watt ain't coming through that door come training camp in mid-July either. And if giving out these two extensions forces the Bengals front office to be better at talent evaluating and drafting when it comes to the prospective collegiate talent that's graduating to the NFL level, then you know what? So the hell be it. You are an NFL franchise trying to win a Super Bowl. We think the perfect roster is going to be gift wrapped to you on a silver platter? No, gotta go out there and gotta earn it, gotta work for it. So if this move means that the Bengals front office got to be a little bit more detailed, spend a little bit more money, and be a little bit more assertive when it comes to bringing in defensive talent to help the team win, you know what? So be it. So be it. Sally, you can pay who you want to play, but you can pay who you want to pay, I should say. But the fact of the matter of it is, you still got to be able to do the work. So I do not subscribe to the idea, well, if the Bengals should take that money and spend it on who? Who would the Bengals have gotten that is either on the or on the level or above the level of T and Jamar and what they provide to the football team? Go ahead. I'll wait. Again, Donald's retired. J.J. Watt's retired. You ain't getting James Harrison coming back for another, for another stint in Tiger Stripes. Ray Lewis is damn near 50. Who you getting? Who you getting? Cam Chancellor can't play. He's got injuries with his neck. He ain't coming out of retirement. Ronnie Lott's in his 60s. Who you getting? Coach Prime, God bless him, got 7 toes. And is damn near 60 himself. He's got a program to run up in Boulder. Unless I missed it, who was the blue chip defensive free agent that was available that the Bengals could have paid instead of T and Jamar? I will be here all day and night. Somebody, please tell me. What, Josh Sweat? Most of the high-end defensive talent either got locked up the second they hit free agency or they re-upped with their original teams that they ended 2024 with. Who? And that's my point. You can't give me who. You may disagree with it, but it's the method that works best for them. And in fairness, it's not like that they've gone 4-13, 5 and what? 17, basic math. 5-12, 2-15. No. But I'm so tired of it. Oh, they're dumb. They should have spent it on defense. Spent it and gotten who? Who? Well, that just means they got to draft better. Okay, they got to draft better. Regardless, hook by crook, they had to draft better to begin with anyway. And just for the sake, and just for in the sake of this conversation, you guys do realize that if they let they pay T to let Jamar walk. Well, just pay Jamar and let T walk. I saw a comment on YouTube the other night. Well, let him walk and upgrade Yoshivas to wide receiver too. Okay, and who replaces Andre Yoshivas as wide receiver number 3? And if God forbid Yoshi and or Jamar get hurt, then who's catching the ball? What? Charlie Jones? Trent Irwin? What are we doing here? What, Jermaine Burton, who can't get out of his own way? He becomes wide receiver 3 in the first line of of a defense or a pick-me-up if something, God forbid, were to happen to Yoshi or Jamar? Again, get the facts, the data, the statistics. Watch the games with your eyes, not the YouTube highlights, not the TikTok memes. No, watch the game from start to finish like a normal, regular fan and stop falling hook, line, and sinker for the old basic, boring, unfunny, unoriginal, pathetic-ass narratives. Again, they should have paid him months before. But you can't cry over spilled milk. What's done is done. They're a better football team with T, with Jamar, than they are without him. Case closed. And if Burrow verbally on multiple occasions after many a game last season says he wants him on the team, you get T and Jamar on the team. Simple. Because unless you can go out there and literally buy the 85 Bears defense, what are we talking about? And just by the mere eye test of me watching that disgusting unit for 17 weeks, it can't get much worse than what it already was last year. Hubbard, who was a liability, he's retired. They're eventually going to trade Drain Pratt. They're most likely going to they're not going to bring back Mike Hilton. Cleaned house of the defensive coaching staff. Fired Lou Anarumo on Black Monday. They're not going to get much worse than what they already were. And even with that disgusting defense, they came within a few breaks of making the playoffs. And arguably came within a handful of plays of winning the division. I mean, they beat Baltimore twice, and who the hell knows? Who knows? So I understand. And the moving of the goalposts is insane. When this whole debacle was going on in the weeks prior of this month and in late February and even last March and the training camp prior to this past 2024 season, all I heard about are the Bengals are cheap, the disrespect, they're not paying their superstars, they're dumb, they're gonna get pissed off. Oh, T is leaving, T is leaving, T is leaving, T is leaving, Higgins is leaving, Higgins is gone, Higgins is gone. That's all I heard for about a good year and a half. And yet, all of a sudden, the Bengals man up, it gets serious, and now all of a sudden, the Bengals got essentially the three stooges calling the shots in the front office. You can't have it both ways. Pick a lane. Either they were dumb and stupid and being cheap and practicing in football organizational malpractice by not paying them, or they're stupid and clueless for paying them. Because you can't keep both. You call them everything but a child of God, rightfully so, when they didn't pay them, and then when they finally buck up and join the big boys and decide to pay them, now all of a sudden they don't know their asses from their elbow and they're not going to win a game. Which one is it? Because you can't pick both and you can't move the goalposts. You can't. That's another thing I got so sick and freaking tired of hearing. It's enough. It's enough, it's enough, it's enough, it's enough, it's enough. And just for you capologists out there, I got information for you right here, okay? By extending this courtesy of Jordan Schultz, who is the guy that broke the story nationally of Fox Sports. By extending Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the Bengals will actually lower both players' cap hits for this season. Higgins' cap number was over $26 million and Chase's was over $21 million. Both now will decrease, giving Cincinnati more flexibility to continue building their roster. So there you go. T. Higgins, 4 years, $115. Jamar, 4 years, $161, $112 guaranteed. Highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. So there you go. And I said it throughout the process. I was getting frustrated. I was getting stir crazy, but I said throughout the process, oh, T's going to be. Now, Who wants to get tagged? I understand all that. But I knew what the Bengals were doing. They were going to tag him and they were going to sign him. They were going, and I said it, believed it at the time on Twitter on the show. I said it. They were going to use the tag as basically an insurance policy to buy themselves more time to get T. Higgins extended, which is exactly what happened. Now, does this make the Bengals a shoe-in to forget winning the conference, win the Super Bowl? Does this even make the Bengals a shoe-in to win the division? The answer is absolutely positively not. Because we still don't know what the hell their plan is with addressing the guards. They cut their guards, glorified turnstiles. Okay, great. We got to get some new ones in here. My thing is sign one and draft the other one. Count on your refurbished offensive line coaching staff and hope everything works out. Hope and pray everything works out and that these new coaches you brought in there are going to be worth their merit and worth their salt coming up once you get, to OTAs and training camp and everything else. And then the defense, hope and pray that it at least is average and that Joe Burrow and Jamar and T replicate two-thirds of their banner seasons from last year. Maybe Zach Taylor remembers to bring his brain to the games. Evan McFeeble remembers how to make a damn kick. And maybe you'll go 12-5, 11-6, maybe 13-4, and then you make the playoffs and you take it from there. You make the playoffs and you take it from there. So they still got money and they still got the resources, at least in the immediate, to fix this football team. But I tell you one thing, they're a hell of a lot better of a football team in mid-March on the paper with T and Jamar on it than either one of them off it. And that's the thing I also couldn't understand. So the Bengals have a glaring weakness. So what do? You are going to make your strength into a weakness. So you have basically two shitty sides of the ball instead of just one. I'd rather have one. I'd rather have none. But if I had to choose, gun in my head, I'd rather have one side of the ball be dog crap and have the other one be exponentially great and take my chance I can win with that rather than going into a season with two crappy sides of the ball and hope I can magically make tiramisu out of it. Another ass backwards comment that made no damn sense. So you want the Bengals to weaken their strongest part of the football team. It's not the NBA, folks, where one player, one bat, one starting pitcher can dominate a series, can dominate a game, can take over a team's, fabric overnight, 180. Football, it ain't like that. What good is, you're better off, again, with them both on the team than with them off it. Does it make them Super Bowl champions? As of what day was that? The news casually broke on Saturday afternoon, broke for real officially late Sunday night. Does it get the Bengals any closer to a Lombardi now than what they were this time last week? No. But they'd be a hell of a lot further from the Lombardi without T and or Jamar than they are currently with them. And that's the point, and that's the basic premise that y'all are failing egregiously to understand. If you think the Bengals are a better football team without T, Higgins, and or Jamar Chase, you need your head examined. And you need your head examined. You haven't been, and that's being a piss poor football fan. Because if you watch the games, you know how important it is for those guys to be on the field together at the same time and both healthy. That's not paying attention to the Cincinnati Bengals properly. So if I know, it's like a chef that specializes in making steak, and they're going to cut off their relationship with, their local butcher or whatever, and then take those connections and then try to apply them to getting better at garnishes. Now, could you be better at garnishes? Yes, but your bread and butter is steak. Why in the hell would you cut off your food supply of what makes you great? You hear how dumb that sounds? That's what you stooges wanted the Bengals to do. It's just dumb. Dumb and unnecessary. So, as a fan, lastly, I'm ecstatic. I couldn't be happier that they're back. I'm glad this got out of the way. Like I said last show, they didn't wait till, 4th of July, Father's Day. Then they have this foolishness drag into training camp. I'm glad they got it done when they did. Really am. The earlier they got it done, the better. So they don't have to go into OTAs and training camp, having to ask and deal with the questions and the controversy and the possible hold. It's just you just avoid the situation by getting them paid, getting them taken care of, getting them squared away. So for that, I am glad, and for that, I'm thankful. Now you put that away, you pop the celebratory champagne. Now is when you lock in and you get down to business and you get serious and you focus on fixing this football team so they can win a championship. But again, for the last time, the idea that the Bengals essentially upset the football gods and are some of and have now they are dumb, they are stupid for waiting this long, but they're stupid for waiting to pay them. They're not stupid in deciding to pay them. And for those of you that think that way, don't know your asses from your elbow and don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because if you watch the Bengals play, if you watch and see how much Joe Burrow, T, and Jamar mean to one another, not just as players but as people, and if you watch the Bengals play, you watch how that offense operates, you would know good and damn well that this team can they can't even afford to lose either one of them to injury, let alone in the offseason on the open free agency market. And for those of you that, again, got your thumb, heads up your ass, don't know what the hell you're talking about, you need to do some homework. Because you can't, honest to God, look at this team collectively, not just with the defense, collectively, and say they're a better football team without T than they are with them. And again, unless the 85 of the 2000 Ravens defense is available on the open free agency market, I don't know how in the hell you can take the money that they gave T and Jamar and take that into revamping a whole defense. Because their defense was so bad, they needed a literal overnight miracle to become the best unit in the National Football League. And to my knowledge, as of this minute, that miracle ain't going to come. Even with a damn good draft, it ain't going to come. You do what they did, you strip it down, you fire the appropriate people, Sam Hubbard retires, and then hopefully you have a damn good draft and let the pieces fall where they may. And they don't need a top 5 defense to make it deep into the playoffs. They just need a top 15. Give a healthy Joe, Jamar, and T a 12th best ranked offense in the national, 12th ranked best defense in the NFL, and watch and see what happens. And even with that, you give the Bengals a perfect roster, there is still no damn guarantee that they're going to win the Super Bowl outright because village idiot Zach Taylor's head coach, but we've gone through that ad infinitum. I mean, again, you can bring Walter Payton, pick any legend you want, dead or alive. You can bring them back, and even then, it would be no guarantee based on who the head coach is, and even if you have them on the team, exchange them with T. Higgins, there's no guarantee the offense is going to be as great as it is with them. Because, again, the Bengals do not run the football. If they had one of the best rushing offenses in the National Football League, that'd be one thing. And people are saying, well, you don't need them. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs got away with not having a nice assortment of wide receivers until they couldn't anymore. I guarantee you, every single Chief fan that watched that debacle on February 9th wished Tyreek Hill was the Kansas City Chiefs as of that moment in that game during that ass kicking. They got away with it. They went back to back. God bless them. But I guarantee you right now, Brett Veach and them sitting up there saying, yeah, we can't get away with essentially, Patrick Mahomes being out there by himself and relying on a half-assing Travis Kelce to be his passing attack, or a washed DeAndre Hopkins, or a washed Hollywood Brown. Because the Chiefs, like the Bengals, have no damn running game. So what happens if you have a top 5 best quarterback and relatively no run game to speak of, and you know it's easier to replace the poor wide receivers at your disposal than revamping a run game? What do? You go for the easier option. The easier, simpler, quicker option. Again, if you pay attention, you'd realize that. 2021, this is the stat, the Bengals record when Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins are available to play. Bengals record since 2021, Burrow and Chase's rookie year, 34-18. You think they were going to let that 34-18 record walk? Really? Really? David Mulgaleta, an agent that gets his clients top dollar when they hit the free agency market, but historically has never seen eye to eye with the Bengals front office. For better or for worse, regardless whose fault, they just, in their history, they've never seen eye to eye. And he actually is the agent of Jesse Bates, the most recent big name Bengals free agent to be, that walked and left the team, went somewhere else in free agency. And he originally represented T. Higgins. And I talked about this when it happened at the time, how he dumped Mugaleta and hired Rocky Arsenio. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Arceneaux. Arsenio, I think, is how you pronounce that. Because the AUX is pronounced O, the Creole French, whatever the hell it is. Anyway, he hired Jamar Chase's agent, Rocky Arsenio. And I said at the time, they are meeting the Bengals at their level. They wanted to meet the Bengals at their level to do everything and anything in their human power for them to stay together as teammates. They didn't want to leave. T said at his presser on Tuesday, he grew up. He's not a local Cincinnatian, but like me, he grew up a Cincinnati Bengals fan. Who's one of his favorite players growing up? In fact, his favorite player growing up that he models his game after? AJ Green. Nothing else to say. He said his presser. He's like, he takes it as an honor and as a privilege and a dream that he has accomplished playing for his favorite team, modeling his game after one of the greatest Bengals and one of the greatest Bengals wide receivers to ever play. And he, along with his buddy Jamar Chase, are on a current trajectory to be even better than AJ and Chad Johnson were in their heyday. And he and Jamar share the same agent. And Jamar said yesterday that he made it a point of emphasis that he wanted to make sure, within constant contact with his agent, with his representation, that T. Higgins was also going to get taken care of along with Jamar himself. No one player bigger or deemed in their eyes better than the other. They both wanted it to get taken care of. They both wanted their deals announced at the same time. They both wanted their congratulatory new contract press conferences to be at the same time on the same day amongst each other. Remember, there's no I in team. Contrary to this 2025 new age, new generation professional athletes, there is no I in team. There's an I in championship, but you can't win a championship without the team. Football's the ultimate team game. And I told you guys when, and this is not breaking news to anybody, but I told you guys at the time when it was originally news that this is what the plan was and this is what was going to happen. And lo and behold, it was frustrating. I didn't think at times, as recently as last episode, I was going to be right. But at the end of the day, I ended up being right. Again, they're not going to kick 34-18 to the curb, especially when they know good and damn well that they need the high-end talent to bail out their idiot head coach that for some ungodly reason is going to stick around for yet another season. So, again, no, even the Bengals don't hustle backwards. They may give off the appearance or the initial image that they may, but when come hell to high water, even them, they don't hustle backwards. They don't. They don't. 34-18, and not going to say, you know what, T, thanks for your services and trade them. Especially when they're in the midst of a Super Bowl championship window with one of the greatest quarterbacks they've ever had in the midst of the beginning of his prime. And people are just having the expectation like the Bengals are like a glorified farm team for the rest of the NFL. Again, if you guys put your heads out of your ass, pull your heads out of your collective asses, woke up, got a clue, and paid attention, you would have known this from the jump. I'm talking hella shit today, but damn it, I don't care. T. Higgins quote yesterday, I want to win a championship. I feel like we can do that here. The expectation, the gold standard has never changed. And again, especially in the aftermath of seeing Devontae Adams leave and go hitch his wagon to who? Derek Carr and the Raiders. He wasn't satisfied there. Then he decided to reunite with Aaron Rodgers, and we saw how that disaster with the Jets played out. Tyreek Hill, the season wasn't even an hour old, and he was expressing buyer's remorse in his season-closing presser when he talks to the media in the locker room after their Week 18 Jet loss. If you guys remember that. So you see all these examples of these wide receivers that leave their original team in the name of chasing the bag, and then once the money the novelty of being the highest paid such and such wears off, they realize, oh, damn, X's and O's wise, football wise, I'm in a worse situation now than I was in the situation that I just left. So the Bengals don't hustle backwards, and I know damn Skippy, guys like T. Higgins don't hustle backwards. He wasn't going to put in all his and go leave Joe Burrow and his best buds Burrow and Chase, leave them and go catch passes from who? Drake May? What? Drake May? Even saw way in the good old Twitter time machine edits of him being a Pittsburgh Steeler. Yeah, with Justin Fields who ain't even there no more, and Russell Wilson throwing the football. Maybe. Not even. Really? Come on, people. I understand Bengals are an easy target. You know, they make light. You know, they're easy to make fun of. They're easy to break the balls of. But if you're going to make your wisecracks, going to make your jokes, going to take your jabs, can you at least use logic, common sense, and a hint of intelligence before you do so? I'm so sick of that shit, man. It made me want to vomit. But T. Higgins, ladies and gentlemen, is here to stay. Praise God. So, switching gears. I didn't want to lead with that, but it was, at least for me, the story of the weekend. Let us not forget also, it is that special time of the year of the 2025 NCAA tournament. Nice March Madness preview. By the way, from the conference tournaments that was over the weekend, first off, let's go backwards to forwards first. No, forwards to backwards first in terms of the games. Saturday in the Big Ten semis, what I cannot understand, and this I'm talking about the Michigan and Maryland game, for them to allow Trey, they being the Maryland defense, and give Coach Kevin credit. They've had a phenomenal year. The freshman has been absolutely sensational for him. Had a nice game. Derek Queen, the center, averaging 16 points a game this season, had 31. in the semifinal on Saturday. But and this is the second time like the last 3-4 weeks, because remember, this is the same Maryland team that had just had an atrocious late game situation, poor late game situation of basketball in the closing seconds of their game at College Park against Michigan State a handful of weeks ago. Hoist up a three from essentially Pennsylvania Avenue with 7 seconds left. Clank off the rebound. We don't get it back. Slow in transition. Hoist up a prayer. And Maryland lost the heartbreaker to Michigan State because of poor late in-game situational basketball. And then we see on Saturday afternoon, they allowed Trey Donaldson after the made free throws to give Maryland a 1-point advantage. We see Trey Donaldson go coast to coast with not a single white jersey to be seen in the middle of the court that allows Donaldson to get the game-winning layup with less than a second to go in regulation. I mean, that just cannot happen. I mean, you take a look and freeze frame it. There's backs towards the sideline. There's backs towards the sideline. There's backs towards the bench, backs to slow in transition, getting back. I mean, he literally just got the inbound and beelined to the basket. Now, there was not a single Maryland Terrapin and standing in the middle of the floor. I don't care if you got to stand there, take a charge, and hopefully it doesn't go your way. Something. But to allow Donaldson to inbound coast to coast like that with not a single thread of resistance from the Terrapin, that's just as bad late game defense in a tight game in the month of March you're going to see at the collegiate basketball level. That was completely and utterly unacceptable and inexcusable. That was on Saturday. And then in terms of the games earlier in the week with the SEC, that semifinal between Tennessee and Florida was that was riveting basketball. Let me take a second here to pull this one up quickly because that was a great game. Let me pull it up here and give me a couple seconds. That was a sensational game between how the fuck can I find it? And then in terms of the SEC tournament last week, quickly, on Thursday, that was a riveting game in double OT between Texas and Texas A&M. Trey Johnson, 20-point performance, had the three that broke the game open late there in the second overtime period. And then how about the affairs? We started with the Big Ten tournament. We're going to end with it quickly, and then we'll turn our attention to the NCAA side of things here in a moment. But how about the game, the defense, what do you want to call it, bad offense or excellent defense? Regardless, it was a war of absolute attrition showcased by the Wisconsin Badgers and the Michigan Wolverines on Sunday afternoon. And for Michigan to show such mental toughness and play with such tenacity on a defense side of football, and even just showcase a nice level of excellence within the attribute of perseverance offensively when they shot collectively 32% from the field and 27 from three. They attempted 33 three-point shots, shot 9 of them. Wisconsin, unlike previous years, they've been able to find some offense and to find an offensive bread and butter that works for them on that side of the floor, but the three ball was not falling for him on Sunday afternoon. Shot 39 threes, made 17% of them. Do the math, that's only 7 made threes. A lot of these points were had at the free throw line. Wisconsin got to the stripe 18 times, was 16 and 18. Michigan was nearly perfect, got to the line 13 times. But for Michigan to show such great mental toughness would be the word I would use to fight and to scratch and to claw and to suffocate Wisconsin, especially out there on the perimeter. If I was a a Michigan Wolverine fan, alum, or current student going into their first round game coming up within a matter of a handful of hours, less than that, tomorrow night against UC San Diego, I would be very, very encouraged going into the first round game coming up tomorrow. But had wanted to have some takeaways specifically on the Big Ten, and that was a hell of a tournament there. And then obviously the Big East, and you could tell that was just such a I hate it. I hate when the culture and the also and or the age gaps get showcased during a sporting event, especially when it comes to the hands of officiating. Doing this when you make a three, backpedaling, jogging backwards, and you kind of go like this, or you go like that. I mean, we gotta call a technical foul on that. Because he's firing a gun. I mean, it's 2025, people. If you think in 2025, criminals, hotheads, and people that are bloodthirsty look towards professional athletes and the celebrations that they do as a instrument of influence or as an emotional catalyst for them to go out into public settings and carry vicious acts with firearms, you're not a serious person. You're not. No one is going to shoot up or hold up somebody or rob a bank or rob someone's home because a basketball player, an NFL player, whatever, that makes a hand signal that is reminiscent of a gun or anything that displays the barrel with the trigger. No serious human being gets influenced by stuff like that. And to call the technical, it's like, what are you doing? What in the hell are you doing? Like again, with the officials, keep your asses out of that's making the game and making that little 2-second moment that I guarantee you 95% of people in the arena pay no mind or attention to. That's making that by definition making a mountain out of a molehill. They call a T on it, and what did it do? Lit a fire underneath St. John's ass, and they ran Creighton out of the building, ended up winning the game with ease, 82-66. Don't let the final score fool you. This game was nip and tuck for a good, the first 85% of the game on Saturday night. It was nip and tuck, and then the minute they got the technical, St. John's went on a run. It was like, oh, we'll show them. And went on a takeover mode. RJ Lewis went crazy. And the rest was history. So keep your ass out of the game. If I've said it once, I've said it 5 billion times in the history of the show. Keep your asses out of the game. Keep your asses out of the game. We have no problems. Simple. We have no problems. And now, in terms of how I think St. John's is going to do in the tournament, they are, a lot of people's pick to make it. I won't say a lot, but some people, a healthy amount of people's pick to make the Final Four. Now, if you go St. John's with that, the only cause for pause I have, one, and this is not just with the NCAA tournament, that's with every sport. I cannot stand, picking the trendy team to make either a deep playoff run or win a championship. When a high populace likes a team to make it far, to make it deep in the NCAA tournament, to make it to championship Sunday, to make it to a conference final, to win a World Series, win a Super Bowl, that always raises my eyebrow because something to me is saying, okay, it's to a point where, yes, they are good to a certain extent, but what is something underneath the surface that people are, for whatever the reason, not highlighting, not pointing out, because either they don't want to be different or they're lazy and they're not really peeling the onions back on a team's weaknesses and flaws heading into a given playoff tournament. And with St. John's, you look at it, they're not a very good free throw shooting team. On Saturday night, they only shot 63% from the free throw line. And in order to win in this tournament, you got to make your free throws. Not an option, number one. And number two, offensively, they're not as dominant as they are on the defensive side of the football. Or defensive side of the football. Defensive side of the floor. The defensive side and the F word all flow together to say football. On the defensive side of the floor. But they are not exponentially great. And I understand you sit and take a look at the box score. Oh, they scored 82 against Craigton. They scored 79 against Marquette, 78 against Butler. The Big East was not that good this year. UConn throughout the majority of the season was not a ranked top 25 opponent. It was St. John's, Marquette, Craigton, bottom of the barrel here and there, and that was it. The Big East did not have a great year this year, historically. So, weaker conference. Not that it's St. John's fault, because it, obviously, in the sake of fairness, isn't, but weaker conference. They're not that great from the free throw line, and they're not one of the better offensive teams in all of college basketball throughout the course of this season. When you measure up in class, going up against the big boys, especially when and this is exactly why, ladies and gentlemen, you get the actual paper bracket because it's easier to pull up than the one online. But if you take a look at St. John's side of the bracket and you see on their side they have now that first round games against Omaha, but then they get the winner of Arkansas and Kansas, which won't be easy. If they advance to the Sweet 16, they'll get Missouri, Texas Tech, who's damn good, or Drake, or somehow, some way UNCW in the Sweet 16. They make it that far, and then if they make it to the regional final, look who's on the other side, the other portion of the bracket, if you will. University of Florida, who just won the SEC Conference Championship, is one of the hottest teams in all of college basketball. That's got guards that can score up the yin-yang. They're so deep at that position. UConn, they obviously the back-to-back defending national champions. Maryland, one of the better teams in the Big Ten throughout the course of the regular season that made it to the aforementioned conference semis, that's bloodthirsty for a deep NCAA tournament run, who they may face in the Elite Eight. I mean, not within their little sect, it's not impossible, but if they make it to the Elite Eight, they got the back-to-back national champions, the hottest team in all of college basketball, and one of the better offensive teams in all of college basketball that had a damn good season in their own right in the Terps. UConn, Florida, Maryland. They could face either of those three teams in the Elite Eight. And Texas Tech and Kansas won't be a picnic if they live to see them either. So I'm a little cautious picking St. John's make it to the Final Four. Little cautious. Pitino is a great coach. Don't get me wrong. But if they do make it to the Final Four, I'll tell you this. If they do make it to the Final Four, nobody can kick and scream and say that they didn't earn it or they caught some breaks. Because to get out of the West region, they got to bust their ass. Even if they get 2 layups to start in the first round and second round, Sweet 16, Elite 8, Murderers Row. Murderers Row. But speaking of the tournament, let's talk about the game last night, first four, to kick off the NCAA tournament between St. Francis and Alabama State. For Tony Madlock, give him credit for drawing up a tremendous Hail Mary play late. Hail Mary pass, have everyone, it's a football play, have everyone bunched up underneath the basket, hope a yellow jersey catches the basketball or deflects it into the basket, and you get a nice quick score, leaving St. Francis with little to no time left on the clock for a response. That was a absolute brilliant play design by Coach Madlock in that situation. And also knowing the ins and outs and the intricacies and the gamesmanship of the officials and the officiating in that situation. Like in football, they're not, more times than not, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to call pass interference on Hail Marys. They're not going to call blocking over the back fouls underneath the basket with a second to go on a Hail Mary pass the length of the court. They're going to swallow their whistle in that situation, especially when they're all jumbled up amongst each other like sardines in a can underneath the basket, awaiting the outlet pass from the opposite baseline. So props to him, and knowing that he had essentially the quote unquote rule book on his side to give him the stones to draw up a play that worked to such great effectiveness there late last night in the first four. Amar Knox, take a bow, my friend. You and the Alabama State Hornets have your one shining moment and will live to tell about it as they advance to take on fellow in-state rival Auburn coming up in the affairs tomorrow to kick off the round of 64 for those two aforementioned squads. But 16th seed HBCU out of the SWAC conference, getting their first ever NCAA tournament win. Give them a tremendous credit. Knox capped off again a sensational night, 16 points, 8 of 15 from the field, and had the game-winning layup late. And as for the night game, oh boy. Now, before I get to the BTA that was displayed by the North Carolina Tar Heels against the San Diego State Aztecs last night, my original thoughts heading into the game last night in the aftermath of them making the NCAA tournament on Selection Sunday, their resume and don't give me that net ranking bullshit either. Body of work, their record, how they played, they did not deserve to make the NCAA tournament. They didn't. Well, all they had to do was just be close with Duke and they make it. The fact of the matter is they didn't beat Duke. They lost to Duke the 1st of February. They lost to Duke to close out the regular season on the 8th of March, 82-69. And they lost to Duke in the quarterfinals, or excuse me, in the semifinals on the 14th, last Friday. So I don't care about how tough your schedule is. I don't care about your net ranking. I don't care about your style points and losses against top-tier competition. It's North Carolina we're talking about. Eventually, you got to go out there and you got to win. What's the old Herm Edwards adage? You play to win the game. Nobody cares about how nice, how sexy your schedule looks, how well you play in losses against top-tier competition. Fact of the matter is, you got to stack up, you got to win games. They were 0 for 3 against Duke, who made the NCAA tournament. Okay? 0 for 3 against Duke. And in the other teams that made the NCAA tournament, they lost to Florida, 90-84. UCLA, bravo. They beat them by a basket on December the 21st. That's one game. One win. Their other out of conference tournament teams they played early in the season: Florida, which they lost, Alabama, which they lost. And I'm not talking by a basket by a hair. I'm talking 83-70. That was against Louisville, another team made the NCAA tournament they couldn't find a way to beat. And that was in conference, by the way. Lost to Louisville 83-70. Lost to Alabama 94-79. Lost to Michigan State. I don't care that it was back in November, early December. I'm not interested. Michigan State 94-91 and Auburn 85-72. So, and then Kansas, their second game of the season, 92-89. Eventually, you got to get a win. And one lousy win, one, does not count. That's all they had. One win. You got to give me more than that. This North Carolina we're talking about was in the Final Four short, 2-3 years ago. That's not good enough. And from the people that I follow on Twitter, they was ready to send Hubert Davis up the river. That's how poorly they played early on in the season. Give them credit, they're able to ride the ship, finish with a plus 500 record, had a deep ACC conference run, and were able to get an NCAA tournament win last night, but they shouldn't have made it based on their body of work. No regular season, no conference championship win, and again, their record against teams that made the tournament was bad. Losses to Kansas, 3 consecutive to Auburn, Michigan State, Alabama. So by my count, that's 4. Florida is a 5th. Louisville is a 6th. At some point, you got to beat somebody. And that's not including the 3 losses to Duke. So they lost to Duke 3 times, Louisville, Michigan State, Alabama, Auburn, Kansas. That's not an NCAA tournament team in my eyes. Now, I can't sit up here and scream and yell to the high heavens and say that now, because in their first 4 game against San Diego last night, they kicked the living hell out of them. Defense smothered them to death. San Diego couldn't buy a basket, crashing the boards, and they couldn't miss. They were impeccable last night. North Carolina was impeccable. R.J. Davis dropped 26. Withers, the forward, 10 and 10. Lubin, the other forward, 12 points. Only attempted 3 shots. Unstoppable last night. Next sentence. They shouldn't even played last night because they had no business being in the tournament. Give them credit. Played well offensively. Shot 52%, 58 from 3. They were magnificent. Put an absolute masterclass of an ass whooping on the Aztecs, who aren't very good. No shit, but heading in, weren't very good this season. But they shouldn't have made it based on their body. I don't care how tough your schedule is. You're North Carolina, not North Carolina A&T, all due respect. You got to put together some wins. And against Kansas, Louisville, Duke, Michigan State, Alabama, Auburn, you came up winless. And Duke, Michigan State, and Auburn were 3 out of the top 5 best teams start to finish in college basketball this season. And you couldn't get wins against the cream of the crop. And you couldn't get wins against Alabama, who's right there with them. And you couldn't even get wins against Louisville. I mean, you played Duke 3 times and you lost all 3. And if you would have missed the tournament on a technicality of a lane violation on Friday night last week, so the hell be it. But who knows? Maybe this inspires North Carolina going forward, make a deep tournament run. I'd be surprised, but we'll see if that sensational win last night will light a spark underneath Hubert Davis's squad. So we'll see. In terms of the first 4 games tonight on tap on Wednesday, I don't know why my eyes are allergy season's coming early and nose is running, the eyes are itching. Lord help me. Anyway, you got Mount St. Mary's and American at 6:40, and then Xavier in Texas at 9:10. In terms of the rest of the tournament, be very interesting to see how it plays out. I think this is a wide open tournament in terms of who I think can win the national championship. I really, really do. Because I look at Auburn and I see a team led by the sensational talent and Janai Broom, who's been excellent for him the course of the year. But as of lately, Auburn has fallen a little bit into a rut recently. You take a look at how they have played, and they didn't close out the regular season well, and without winning, obviously making it to the SEC championship game, and not have a great conference tourney down there in Nashville, losing to Tennessee by 5 last Saturday. I mean, you take a look since their win at Kentucky in the game in which Broom was horrible and they were able to pick up the slack. Since that game on the 1st of March, their second most recent win, they have lost 3 out of the last 4 games. And they did not close the regular season out well, losing back-to-back to Texas A&M and that overtime thriller home against Alabama. So I take a look at a team such as Auburn, who went up until March, having only lost 2 games. Think about that. They went up until March the 1st, having lost only twice. At Duke, the 4th of December, and home against Florida the night before the Super Bowl. They went the entire season having only lost 2 games within 2 months of each other. 1 loss in December, they went undefeated in January, and 1 loss in early February. And since March, they've dropped 3 of 4. I take a look at that, and I look at their offense, and I see the intensity that Bruce Pearl has and how hard he coaches those guys, and you take a look at his resume, his history. I think Auburn, the way I see it, has a tournament run in them that could be very UConn-esque if they're on their P's and Q's. I think if they play with such that heightened level of detail and intensity that we saw from them 98% of the season up to this point, I think Auburn, this is no breaking news. I'm not no hot taking nothing, but I look at that team and I see, okay, this is a damn good team that's had an excellent season, that's running into some adversity, that's looking for that launching pad to get their second win with the tournament coming up. And I take a look at how their bracket shapes out. They got, obviously, the aforementioned Alabama State tomorrow. And then they get the winner of either Creighton or Louisville, which won't be easy. And then they have either Michigan, University of San Diego, Texas A&M, or Yale staring down the barrel before they get to an Elite Eight matchup. Now, the thing that would scare me is if they make it to the Elite Eight and Izzo and them is standing on the other side. If we get Izzo and the fighting marches going up against Bruce Pearl's team, that, my friends, could be one hell of a basketball game there to go to the Final Four. Before they get there, though, I like their chances to at least make it to a regional final. I really do. Their offense is sensational. They're too good of a team for them to basically take their last essentially 5 weeks, give or take, last 5 games, I should say, and say, you know what, we're not that good anyway. They've played too well, too consistently for them to get down on themselves now, in my eyes. And I think they have an opportunity to get out to a nice, quick, early run that can kind of woosah and reset the thoughts and the mindset of that basketball team and then get them to play together complementary basketball like we've seen throughout the course of the season, as recently best displayed in their victory against Kentucky first of the month. I think if they have a nice solid game, and I'm talking about put Alabama State in their place, get out to a 23-4 run and put this game over with 5 minutes to go before the half. That's how dominant of a performance I'm expecting for Auburn. If they do that, I see a Final Four in their sights without a shadow. Because as great as Michigan State's been, they got more talent than they do. Brooms, they got more talent. Better score. They got more. In my eyes, they got more talent. More talent. And played in a much tougher conference, too. Big Ten, good conference this year. Can't touch what Auburn has had to go through in the SEC throughout the course of the year. And I also don't buy the notion that, well, because the SEC was such a brutal conference with Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Missouri, they're gonna, basically Florida, they're gonna run out of gas, and you're not gonna find a lot of SEC teams making a deep conference. I don't subscribe to that notion at all whatsoever. I don't. You're a good basketball team. You're a good basketball team. And if it's a good conference that's got a deep pool in terms of elite teams that can win a national championship, you're going to find a way regardless. You're not. The cream is going to rise to the top. And if the cream is the SEC and 3/4 of the Final Four teams come April 5th come from the Southeastern Conference, you know what? So be it. So be it. Because as of right now, Auburn, Alabama, Florida can win a national championship right here, right now, without me even having to give it a second thought. Kentucky, Tennessee need some things to go their way, in my eyes, for them to make it. But that's been the best conference in college basketball all season long. The notion, well, will they get tired because they had to beat each other up in the conference tournament? I don't subscribe to that. I don't. Now, would it surprise me if, you know, you get a you get, let's see, Maryland and Marquette to make it out of the South and the West, and you get Duke and, let's go, Clemson to make it out of the other half of the bracket? Would that surprise me? No, yeah, it would. But I think the best teams out of the SEC, without even giving a second thought, Auburn, Florida, Alabama, in that order. Tennessee with Rick Barnes, as we know, scares the living shit out of me this time of the year. I got to see a Rick Barnes team be ready for prime time deep into the tournament in order for me to believe it. But right now, in the order, Alabama, Florida, Florida, Auburn, Alabama. Auburn had the best season. Florida is the hottest team in basketball, in my opinion. Hottest team and low-key scary, one of the deeper teams in terms of talent level, especially at the guard. I mean, their backcourt is just, my lord, they're on another level. In terms of the games itself, Let's see. We begin Thursday, obviously, with Creighton and Louisville. I think the thing that's going to be important to pay attention to throughout the course of this tournament is especially the teams that, because I'd be here a week from Thursday going down every single game on this upcoming Thursday and Friday. But I think the key to watch in this tournament is the teams that made a deep conference tournament run that played a lot of mentally and physically grueling and emotional games. I'm talking Florida. I'm talking about Tennessee. I'm talking about obviously uh, Wisconsin, Michigan, those teams. You played one thing to pay attention to with the game starting obviously Thursday afternoon, Creighton and Louisville, 12:15 CBS. To pay attention to in this tournament because I'd be here, a week from Sunday, breaking down every last one of the games set to tip off between Thursday and Friday afternoon, early afternoon, late afternoon, evening, and nighttime. Pay attention to the teams that had deep conference tournament runs and be on high alert and keep your eyes peeled for any immediate sense of fatigue, um staleness, anything along those lines regarding the teams that played deep into the conference tournament and played emotionally and mentally and physically draining, taxing games last week. Wisconsin, Michigan with the back-to-back against the aforementioned, and the day before against Maryland. Even Maryland to a little bit of a certain extent. Because you take a look at Maryland's side of the bracket, they have Grand Canyon coming up, and they get the winner of Memphis and Colorado. So, they could have back-to-back laughers heading into the Sweet 16 where they may have to play either the back-to-back defending national champions or the hottest team in the land in the Florida Gators. They could. But even look to that a little bit. Emotional game, brain lock at the end of it, defensive breakdown to allow Cunningham to go coast to coast. And then I've had, now maybe, the break is a good thing, but you're used to playing, 2-3 times, not three, but used to playing essentially twice in about a 6 to 7 day period a week. You play, 3 games in a row, back to back. I mean, you play a schedule when you play in these conference tournaments, something that you never even have to face in the NBA in a playoff series, no less. So then you have that emotional letdown. Then you have all of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Got 4 days to think about it. And then you're playing, and let's double check, because I believe that game is being played in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, on Friday. They don't play Thursday, they got Friday. But let me double check and make sure and see where that game is played because in Seattle. So they got a 4 day respite off of a bad loss, on top of the fact they got to fly cross country to Seattle and play a 1:35 local tip. I mean, that is, if I tell you, if Grand King gets out to a nice little start, it would not surprise me. Now, Maryland's a better team than Grand Canyon is. Obviously, the rookie's been phenomenal. Their offense has been off the charts. With outside of really the Michigan State game to speak of at large, a handful of weeks back at College Park, but be on the lookout for teams like that. Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, Florida, Tennessee. The teams that played and either throughout the course of their conference tournament or in the conference tournament semifinals, and damn skipping the championship game, that played these grueling, exhausting games that felt like in the moment of do or die. And then you go from that, where the building is electric, every basket, every possession is everything, and then you flip to that round of 64 game, and you're playing, either if you're Maryland, you're playing cross country, whatever, you're either playing in a non-traditional NBA city slash town, or excuse me, a non-traditional college basketball city slash town, a la Seattle, Washington, or you're playing an NBA city or town where Grand Canyon, Maryland would not sell out Madison Square Garden or the TD Garden up in Boston. It would sell out Capital One Arena. It wouldn't sell out, the State Farm Arena. So, and then you go from the environment from that to in these NBA arenas playing at obscure times in the early afternoons on weekdays, and the building is half empty. And meanwhile, to your opponent, the Grand Canyons, the Alabama States, the Americans, the Omahas of the world, you are their game 7 of the NBA finals to them. And you being the big boys from the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, there's a subconscious trap that you got to avoid yourself from falling victim to playing in these early NCAA tournament games. But I would keep an eye out for that heading into Thursday and Friday's action. The game to watch, if I had to pick one game, find my pen that's got the little pointer thing on it. If I had to pick a game coming up on Thursday and Friday, I'll do myself a favor and give me one game for each day. If I had to pick a game I had to watch coming up on Thursday and Friday, one game I had to watch, or it'd be the end of the world. Thursday, I would pick Alabama State and Auburn, off of Alabama State's tremendous finish, coming off their first ever NCAA tournament win. They're an HBCU. Both teams are within the state of Alabama, and I want to see. And only finished 4 games above 500, throughout the course of the year. And Auburn, who again lost 2 games up until March the 1st, 28-5. They've lost 3 or 4, trying to get their confidence back, and maybe this would be the game that they belt the ass to Alabama State, and all of a sudden the Auburn we saw in February, December, and January returns, or they play an absolute nail biter and it's a 16 beats a 1 for like the third time in the last 7-8 years, and Auburn's tremendous season essentially means nothing because they played their worst brand of basketball at the worst possible time, the final 4 or 5 weeks to close out their season, and Alabama State all of a sudden lives to make it to the actual first weekend of the NCAA tournament with the game that would be set for Saturday, and they would get the winner of Louisville and Creighton in the 8-9 matchup if they were to upset Auburn tomorrow afternoon at 2:50. So that'd be the one game I would pick on Thursday. The one game I would pick on Friday, let's see. Baylor, Mississippi State, no. Troy, Kentucky, no. Norfolk State and Florida, no. Oklahoma, UConn. Could I go there? I would go. Could go North Carolina, Ole Miss too. That wouldn't be bad. That game's at 4 o'clock on Friday. I'd go North Carolina, Ole Miss. Part of me wanted to go Grand Canyon and Maryland, because I want to see how Maryland responds off of that heartbreaking loss on Saturday. Not to mention playing in the Pacific Northwest, they're going to be, out of their element, so to speak. But I want to see if how long North Carolina can go on this, I told you so revenge tour that we belong to the NCAA tournament. RJ Davis out of eligibility after this year. Let's see him show up and show out to against the big diesels of this tournament. And six-seeded Ole Miss who had themselves a hell of a year down in Oxford. So let me see, in the staple in North Carolina, the college basketball staple up against now Ole Miss. Obviously, like I said, they're not on my list in terms of the top tier teams in the SEC. I believe that can win it all, but they do represent the season of dominance that it has been for their conference. I go North Carolina, Ole Miss on Friday at 4:00, and I give you Alabama State and Auburn at 2:50 Thursday afternoon. If I had gun to my head, had to pick only one game to watch for each day that begins counts as the first round of the NCAA tournament. Each first round dates, I can only pick one. Those would be the two games I would pick. Now, for my final four, and I'll tweet it out as I have often have done the morning of the first, that Thursday that officially kicks off the tournament. Let's jump right into it. And this is the one that I am going to give you from the March Madness app. Final four. Okay. Well, let's you know what? Let's do Elite Eight to give a little bit of suspense leading up to the Final Four. I got Auburn, Michigan State in the Elite Eight. I got Florida and St. John's in the Elite Eight. Houston and Tennessee in the Elite Eight. Duke and Alabama in the Elite Eight. Yes, I went chalk, but now if let's give you an example. If Arkansas first year with Calipari, if they're making deep run, will I be surprised? No. If UConn as an 8 seed makes it to an Elite Eight or a third consecutive Final Four, I'd be surprised. No. If Maryland, albeit a rough bracket, they not as rough as St. John's, but if they have to face either UConn or Florida in Elite Eight to make it to a Final Four, would I be surprised? No. But I try not to overthink it. Go off of what the experts and the analysts have told me, whether via Twitter, TV, whatever. I use my own brain. Try to, not overthink creating these brackets. The key, we all know that having the perfect bracket is damn near impossible. In fact, it essentially is impossible. The key is you want to hit on your Final Four picks. So I got Elite Eight Auburn and Michigan State, Florida St. John's, Houston and Tennessee, Duke and Alabama. And then for my Final Four, I got Alabama and St. John's, Auburn and St. John's, Alabama and Houston, and an Auburn-Houston championship game. I think Houston, led by Coach Kelvin Sampson, has underrated. It doesn't get talked about a lot because they played in the American and now obviously in the Big 12. They don't get talked about enough as that quote unquote modern day blue blood of college basketball, and they really don't get a lot of love. When you talk, especially throughout the course of this year, I think they've been lost in the shuffle with the great seasons that Auburn has had, that Duke has had, that Michigan State has had, the dominance of the SEC. Houston is one of the best basketball teams you can find in this country, coast to coast. That is one of the better and has been consistently under head coach Kelvin Sampson, one of the best defensive teams in all of collegiate basketball, in all of men's collegiate basketball. That's just a fact. That's a fact. And eventually, one of these years, they're going to break through and they're going to catch somebody by surprise and find themselves in the Final Four. Now, it won't be easy because Gonzaga is a damn good tournament team. They can never win anything. But in terms of making it to a regional final, they're always a force to be reckoned with. and they could face either them or Georgia in the second round, which will be far from a day at the beach. They got to go through Clemson and/or Purdue, and possibly in a Sweet 16. Don't sleep on High Point either. It's the 13th seed, by the way. Don't sleep on them. And then if they get to an Elite Eight, they'll either have to go up against either Kentucky, Illinois, Tennessee, or possibly even UCLA with Mick Cronin bitching and screaming about the travel. So won't be easy getting out of that bracket. But I think with that good defense, well coached, got some experience, I see them making it to the Final Four going up against Alabama, who not named, like I previously said earlier in the segment, is a team in college basketball uh, not named Auburn and Florida. That's one of the better teams I've seen in this conference throughout the course of the year. They're a 2 seed. If you take a look at their side of the draw, they got Robert Morris in the first round, and they get the winner of St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. And then on the other side, BYU, Wisconsin, Montana, or VCU to get to a regional final where they would match up against Duke. They got now Cooper Flagg's health plays a huge part in this. He's been the best player pound for pound in college basketball throughout the course of the season. Duke's able to manage like they were able to this past Saturday night. Take care of business in a 116 game, and then match up against Baylor, and then let the chips fall. But they may from there on out. If Duke still getting their sea legs underneath them in the John Shire era post Coach K within this tournament, what better time than now when you have the best player in all of college basketball throughout the course of this season is going to be a top 5 lottery pick in the NBA at the end of the day. Why not? What time better be than now for them to make it to a Final Four? Duke and Alabama 1 and 2. I didn't give you Clemson's opponent. Tennessee, they've had some peaks, valleys. They won a game against Alabama recently on their own home floor in the aftermath of losing a game in the aftermath of losing a heartbreaker. So there's been a give and a take with Tennessee throughout the course of this season. They made it to the championship game, lost to Florida, couldn't keep up with them when it was all said and done. Offensively, guard play, like I've said, for the Gators has been great as of late, and they've been the hottest team in all of college basketball. Rick Barnes is due for some luck in this tournament. I got Houston and Tennessee, Alabama and Duke in the Elite Eight, and a Houston, Alabama Final Four on the right side of that jumbo bracket. And then for the Elite Eight, Auburn and Michigan State. Auburn, I am banking on and counting on them using this little rough patch, losing 3 or 4 and having a rough stretch. I am counting on that being a come to Jesus moment for this team, for them to get themselves together, get their act right, rely on each other, a little bit of self-reassurance heading into this tournament, and to find their way to make it deep here and within a matter of the next few weeks, kicking off with obviously their game tomorrow afternoon. But I think Bruce Pearl is an intensive coach in college basketball that you'll find. This is a gritty team, a fearless team. They know how to win, with throwing elbows and knowing how to win white knucklers, and they also know how to win with finesse as well. And they embody the persona of their head coach. And either this little slide is going to lead to an all-time crash and burn against Alabama State, or it's going to propel them to a Final Four. My opinion, they've been too good this season for me to find anywhere in between. If they lose in either, unless it's in the Elite Eight to Izzo, if they lose either in the Sweet 16 or the second round, I'd be flabbergasted. I think there's no happy medium for this team. They either will lose tomorrow in a heartbreaker, or they're going to the Final Four and probably going to walk away ending up winning it all because they were the best team in the SEC throughout the course of the regular season. So I got them and Michigan State, and all Izzo knows how to do in this month, in the month of March, is win. That's why it's January, February, Izzo, April, and he owns this month. One of the best NCAA tournament head coaches the game has seen in recent memory. He knows how to get more out of less than arguably any coach in college basketball you can find. I mean, Rick Pitino would be a good rebuttal, but Izzo, man, he's just on another level. Due for another deep tournament run. I think he'll make it to an Elite Eight. I got Auburn and St. John's making it to the Final Four out of that side of the bracket. Speaking of St. John's and Rick Pitino, he's done an absolutely marvelous job. 72 years of age. He knows and he gets St. John's basketball. He knows how important it is for New York's college basketball team to own that city, own MSG. He gets it. And the play by Lewis Jr. throughout the course of the season has been off the charts. They are a solid team defensively. They aren't scared of anybody. Do they play in an inferior conference? Yes, but I don't think that's going to mean a whole hell of a lot at the end of the day. I understand they're not, like I previously stated, they're not great offensively, not one of the better offensive teams in the land throughout the course of this year, and they do leave hella points on the table at the free throw line, which scares you, but they have a coach that, like parallel to Izzo, they know how to navigate and know how to win in this time of the year. Like it's the back of their hand, reciting their name backwards and forwards. I got St. John's making it to the Elite Eight and obviously making it to the Final Four. Going up against Florida, hottest team in college basketball, won the SEC Conference Tournament Championship. Guard play for them has been absolutely off the charts in a matter of the last week plus. I just think with them, it's coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb. A coach that knows his way around the tournament, going up against a team that's hotter than a barbecue in Atlanta, Georgia, on Juneteenth weekend at 2:45 in the afternoon. So this was a tough one. Didn't want to go all. I wanted to at least be there. I couldn't go 3 out of the 4 teams that make it being number 1 seeds. I got Florida, St. John's. Wouldn't shock me if it's Texas Tech and Maryland. Texas Tech's a damn good team. Don't take them lightly either as a 3. Pay attention to them. It wouldn't shock me if it's St. John's in Maryland in the Elite Eight. Wouldn't shock me if it's St. John's and UConn in the Elite Eight. I mean, obviously, how the hell can you? I understand teams not exactly the same, but how the hell can you, disrespect the back-to-back national champions? So I got Auburn, St. John's, Alabama, Houston. I got Auburn, Houston championship game. One of the best offenses going up against one of the best defenses in college basketball. Typically, defense wins championships. Not this time. Auburn is going to use this rough patch as a launching pad to a national championship run. I got the Auburn Tigers winning the national championship over Houston by the final score of 65-60. There you have it. My Elite Eight, Final Four, national championship picks. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Switching gears to the NFL, back to the NFL, I should say, with some free agency things. I got a free agency opinions, I should say. I want to get off my chest. I told you guys when they lost in the snow to the Buffalo Bills last season that their championship window was frozen shut. Now, this after what's transpired in the early, now intermediate stages of free agency, it's all but a certain fact now. These are the names of the 49ers' departures just within the last 2 weeks or so. They traded Deebo Samuel. They cut Leonard Floyd, cut Jadavion Hargrave, cut Malik Collins, left in free agency, Dre Greenlaw, Tre'Davious Ward, Tailonga Hufunga, Aaron Banks, Jaleon Moore, Elijah Mitchell. Why? because they got to make room to pay Mr. Mid. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, who you know good and hell well ain't going to deliver the 49ers a Super Bowl, let alone a championship Sunday appearance with a inferior roster compared to the 23 and 22 teams. So as a result, the majority of the 49ers, what do? They get up and they go join forces with Vance Joseph and Sean Payton in Denver. Listen, from a Denver Bronco perspective, the more veteran reinforcements you can get within that locker room with that young team that's still rebuilding but more teetering on the line of retooling, coming off of an impressive season 10 and 7, making the playoffs as a wild card, second year with Oregon quarterback Bo Nix. The more veteran presence you can get him within that locker room so you can grow, develop, and mature as a player, as a leader, the better, especially on a defensive side of the football that had its rough patches. The Charger game late, they weren't great. Joe Burrow and T. Higgins carved them up in the second half. They were disgusting in that game, and they got ran out of the building by the Buffalo Bills rushing attack, which led to their demise of their season in early January. So you get some veterans in that locker room with experience, with all pros and Pro Bowl appearances and Super Bowl appearances attached to their name. It can hurt. Can hurt. So that is free agency. But the fact that the 49ers on a service level cut as many guys and let as many guys walk as they did and didn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, they're going to have to rely on, they're going to have to say a prayer and hope that CMC can stay healthy for 17 games and then rely on essentially Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall to get the job done in the passing game out wide. I mean, and George Kittle ain't getting, any he's had a healthy injury history too. He ain't getting any younger. And then with Shanahan with his Jekyll and Hyde game plans, he can go weeks at a time without seeing a target. If I was him, I suggest introducing George Kittle into the passing attack just a little bit more heading into 2025. The Washington Commanders trade for Lermy Tunsil. From a Commander side of things, this was an absolutely, and the Houston Texans get a 2026 second and fourth round draft pick, and then a third and a seventh for this year's upcoming draft within a month's time. And Washington gets a 2025 fourth rounder along with left tackle Larry Tunsil. Listen, let's do the Commander side of things first, jumping ahead of myself. For the Houston, I keep on saying Houston first. For the Washington Commanders and their side of things first, it's an A+ trade. You didn't lose any. You only lost 1-2, and that was for next season, not this year. You didn't lose any ones this year or future first round draft picks. You got a young quarterback going into his second season. Offensive line was serviceable, not great. Got beasted and feasted on, obviously, by Philadelphia's front in the championship game we saw a handful of going on 2 months ago at this point. So it never hurts going out there and buying premier blue chip offensive line talent to protect your young quarterback when you have ambitions and goals and dreams to playing in and winning a Super Bowl. I got no problem. So, and it didn't really cost them that much at the end of the day when you look at it in the big picture. I have no problem with Washington making a trade whatsoever, and they didn't have to give up any starter talent to get them either, which is another plus. In terms of the Houston Texans, I want to know what their plan is, what it is that they're doing, because CJ Stroud was up there with Caleb Williams as the most sacked quarterbacks in the National Football League in 2024. And your offensive line play was a collection of turnstiles. And what did he get sacked about? 7 7 something, maybe 7 plus times. I mean, he got his ass handed to him. I think he got sacked about 7 or 8 times. I can go back and look, but he got sacked a hell of a lot in that playoff loss against Kansas City and the Chiefs, which was the coup de grace to their season in 2024. So let me double check just to be sure, just so I can be accurate. But because let's see, he got sacked. Yeah, I thought so. He got CJ Stroud. This is the Texans coming off of a game, their last game of the season. Their playoff loss ended their season on January the 18th. CJ Stroud got sacked 8 times, and they traded away their his blind side protector, and their best offensive lineman within that unit. When their unit collectively was a sieve and a collection of turnstiles that had CJ Stroud, I believe, the second most sacked quarterback in the National Football League. And they traded away Laremy Tunsil for essentially a McDonald's $50 gift card and some late round draft picks for 2026 and beyond. From a Texan side of things, it makes 0 sense. Now, maybe you want to get younger with your offensive line, and Laremy Tunsil, comparatively speaking, is no spring chicken at his position. But even still, I don't understand the logic. If you have a damn good left tackle, they don't have to. I mean, they don't have to be Andrew Whitworth or Anthony Munoz. You got a solid to damn good blindside blocker for your young quarterback. I don't give a shit if you get 2 firsts and Joe Mixon, throw in Tank Dell and Nico Collins. You don't trade Laremy Tunsil. If anything else, you keep him on the roster for sheer depth purposes. Guy gets hurt, you just never know. When that trade came down, when was that? 9 days ago on the 10th. I had zero idea what from the Commander's perspective, it made perfect sense. From the Texans' perspective, I mean, I was scratching my head, staring at my phone for a good 20 minutes. Made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. 0 sense. Jets signed Justin Fields. I mean, that's my reaction. Okay. Justin Fields isn't going to win you a lot of football games, but if you're the Jets and you're being honest and transparent with yourself and being real about the situation, does that really matter at the end of the day? I don't think it does, because you thought you were in a window of contention. It was like I always say, or like Matthew McConaughey, I should say, always says, it was nothing more than a fugazi.
Fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart. It's not fucking real.
Not real. So they're back to reality. Shout out Eminem. Rebuilding, seeing what they have for the future. I'm so glad they kicked Aaron Rodgers' just toxic ass the hell out the door. They need a quarterback that's anti-inflammatory, that's boring, that's not going to attract eyeballs, not going to attract cameras, not going to attract national media conversation, not going to attract Hard Knocks, not going to attract Pat McAfee, not going to attract Mike Greenberg. They picked a boring, lame, laissez-faire option at quarterback. That if somehow by some miracle it works, Justin Fields has little to no tread on his tires and mileage on his engine, relatively young, relatively very early in his NFL career. If he uses this as a nice rebound and makes something of it, then the Jets have something. If they don't, they'll suck. And it's rumored that next year's draft class is going to be a hell of a lot better than this year's is. They'll get themselves in a situation where Aaron Glenn and his coaching staff and his current regime up there in Florham Park, New Jersey, they can pick their own guy. Outside of that, I don't know what really more you can say or you want me to say about the Jets tapping Justin Fields to be their new quarterback. What I can say, though, is the Seattle Seahawks trading Geno Smith to Vegas and signing Sam Darnold and, oh, by the way, hello, Cooper Kupp. Now, cutting Tyler Lockett, let's just get the simple um, item of news out the way. That was a no-brainer. Old, he was like wide receiver 3 on the depth chart behind DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith. I mean, the guy was out there half the time running cardio. He was barely getting the football, was nowhere near the explosive threat downfield like he was in his heyday, especially with Russell Wilson. You kick him to the curb, you have no problems. The crazy thing is that I believe Cooper Kupp and Tyler Lockett are around the same age. Let me double check that just to be absolutely sure. Because the thing that makes no sense, Cooper Kupp, let's see. Tyler Lockett is 32. What is Cooper Kupp, like 30, 31 years of age? So Lockett's 32, Kupp's 31. And Cooper Kupp also has an injury history to attest to as well that you got to take into account if you're a Seahawks fan. So, and the thing that's also crazy is that they got Cooper Kupp to replace DK Metcalf. Now, who's younger than both of them. Now, I'd be kicking and screaming if not for the fact that as talented as DK Metcalf is, there is a level of immaturity with him that caps his talent and what he can provide as a wide receiver 1. And again, DK Metcalf also was looking for a pay raise. That's not fair. And they also, keep in mind, they also got to make sure they don't put themselves in cap hell in case they do find a quarterback of the future. And oh, by the way, Jackson Smith and Jig within 2 seasons is going to be sticking his hand out wanting T. Higgins money. If not Jamar Chase, if he skyrockets in 2025 and beyond in terms of his play and his production. So the whole thing, I want to like it. I want to embrace it. I want to say, oh, man, look at how savage the Seahawks are, man. Coming out of left field, making all these moves. But it's like you didn't get better, but you didn't get necessarily worse. It was like a lateral move. Geno to Sam Darnold. The only parallel between that is Sam Darnold is about, 7 or maybe 8 years younger than Geno Smith is. I mean, lateral move. DK to Cooper Kupp, 2 outstanding wide receivers. Some may argue they got more of their career behind them than ahead of them. Now, personalities, they're different. Cooper Kupp's not going to kick and scream. He's not going to throw fits on the sideline when he's not getting the football. He's not going to make a spectacle of himself when things aren't going great. But they're both wide receivers that, can be, you got to stick them on the back of a milk carton. They can go MIA in streaks. Where you watch a Ram game, you watch a Seahawks game, you say, damn, where the hell's Cooper Kupp? Where the hell's DK Metcalf? He ain't getting the ball. I've noticed that the camera hasn't panned to him, that the announcers haven't said his name not once, and it's, we got 3 minutes left to go, before we start the fourth quarter. Where are they? So I see it. I see the Seahawks making, a lateral move with this. Lateral move, getting Cooper Kupp to replace DK Metcalf. Lateral move and kick and trading Geno Smith back to his old coach in Pete Carroll in Vegas just to bring in Sam Darnold and give him a new contract. I look at this and I see the Seahawks aren't trying to tank, but they didn't graduate with these moves into the window of Super Bowl contention again. Which, if I was a Seahawks fan, would low key have me scared shitless, because you're kind of sort of teetering, even with the young head coach and into his second season, and young team, relatively speaking, with a young defense. You're more so, in my eyes, teetering towards mediocrity and complacency than juggernaut Super Bowl contender of 2013, 14, 15, and so on. It'd be interesting. I don't hate the moves the Seahawks made. I don't love them either. It'd be the best way for me to put it. Don't hate it, don't love it. And meanwhile, the Rams, I mean, that's an upgrade. Cooper Kupp to even Devontae Adams coming off of some sluggish, underwhelming seasons back to back. That's an upgrade. I mean, Matthew Stafford's throwing to Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. I mean, if those two guys are on their game, they give Jamar Chase and T. Higgins a run for their money as the best wide receiver tandem. I was about to say condom, which just would have just been massively, massively wrong by combining the words combo and tandem, and you put it together, you get condom. I mean, I fancy that. There's your dad joke for the day. I've been up since 6 o'clock in the morning and I had to work. What the hell do you want from me at this point? What can be up there with Jamar and T as one of the best wide receiver duos in the National Football League. Not A plus, but a solid B plus A signing for the Rams in that regard. I briefly mentioned it. DK Metcalf is a Steeler, which is a little odd because I don't know who the hell's going to be throwing him the football, and I don't see how the Steelers think two dynamic, boisterous, alpha male, loud personalities in DK Metcalf and Divas too, by the way, and DK Metcalf and George Pickens can coexist on the same team. There's only one football and only one quarterback that can throw the football. If one player's getting more targets than the other, the other one's going to bitch and scream. Especially if and when the Steelers go through those lulls where they avoid the end zone like the Black Plague. And again, who the hell the quarterback's going to be? And it's ironic because it's like the days, if not the hours before that news came down, I read a report courtesy of CBS that DK Metcalf, quote, wants to play for a contender and wants to play for somewhere warm. And he chooses a team that plays in the harsh, cold, Three River winters, such as with the Steelers in the city of Pittsburgh, and a football team that he chooses is stuck in football purgatory. They're not tanking. They're not the worst team in the sport, but they are miles and miles away from graduating to the likes of the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, and Bengals on a good day as the prolific Super Bowl contenders coming out of that conference. And that's that you want to talk about something that doesn't make sense. DK Metcalf being a Pittsburgh Steeler defies every law of football common sense, from a receiver personal perspective to a team oriented, championship minded football perspective. DK Metcalf being a Pittsburgh Steeler makes zero damn sense at all. Makes zero sense. Zero. Baseball to close out the show. Why not? So, and there are also some injuries, by the way. Speaking of baseball with the Yankees, with Clark Schmidt. I mean, when it rains with the Yankees, it freaking pours with their injury luck. And even Paul Goldschmidt has had some injury scares here and there within the span of the last few days. So we have, and this was as of March the 8th from Brian Hawk. And this is in relationship to Giancarlo Stanton. His elbow injuries are considered severe in both elbows. He attributes it to bad adjustments from last season and is unsure when he will be able to resume baseball activities. If surgery is needed, you won't see him throughout the course of 2025. Now, let me see if there's any updates, injury updates regarding the Yankees. I read them off to you and react to them here on camera. Let me see. Clark Schmidt, and this was yesterday at 4:26 in the afternoon. Clark Schmidt may not be ready to make the April 3rd start against Arizona. Just depends on if we want to keep building him up for another start or two. So you got Schmidt out to start the year. No Stanton for God knows how long. Your third baseman issue was still what it is with, and the LeMahieu injury. On top of the fact he can't hit his weight, it's just a complete ghost at third base. And then no Garrett Cole, Tommy John. I mean, I'm looking at the Yankees and I'm saying to myself, how in the hell is this team going to sniff 90 wins? How are they going to sniff 90 to 95 wins? What, their lineup? Their lineup's not that good. Lineup's not that good. You hope Jason Dominguez is something in left field. You hope Paul Goldschmidt, you hope Anthony Volpe takes a massive stride and comes to even a third of good as great and as talented a player Gunnar Henderson and the Corey Seagers of the world are. You hope Jazz Chisholm's renaissance as a Yankee continues in 2025. I look at now, it has nothing to do with the Orioles, don't get me wrong, but I look at the Yankees and I see a team that is literally riding into the season on the coattails of ifs, buts, hopes, and a whole lot of maybes. I mean, they're going to have to rely on Cookie Carrasco in a rotation to start the year with no Louis Hill and no Garrett Cole for the season. Cookie Carrasco in 2025. They're going to have to hope and pray and give a whole lot of maybes that the question marks from previous seasons, even when it comes to as great of a hitter and as great as a player as Judge, with him, they got to hope and pray that he stays healthy throughout the course of a 162. And we've all seen in the years in which either Stanton doesn't hit or he's out due to injury, and it's the one-man wrecking crew and the New York Aaron Judges. Typically, those Yankee teams don't do very well the minute Aaron Judge goes out of that lineup. It's a below-average lineup from top to bottom. Below average. And they're going to have to count on Trent Grisham. Really? Really? Not a very good Yankee team. They're not. They're not. I don't know if those of you all out there that say otherwise, I don't know if you do it to jinx them or you do it because you just love overrating the Yankees. This is not a good baseball team on paper. Bellinger was the other player I was thinking of. And Bellinger, he ain't old, but when Bellinger's play at the plate goes in the toilet, it tanks. He looks like an MVP candidate one game, one season. He goes from MVP to a skinnier Chris Davis. Snap of a finger. You're counting on him showing up. You're counting on and having a renaissance. You're counting on Goldie having a renaissance. You're hoping Trent Grisham is productive. You're hoping Anthony Volpe takes the next step. This is not. You're hoping Jazz Chisholm's bat doesn't turn into a ghost. Ifs, buts, hopes, praise, and a whole lot of maybes. You look at the New York Yankees, that's not a recipe for defending their American League pennant crown. I'm sorry. And if something happens to Judge, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. And it's, again, in the aftermath of losing Garrett Cole for essentially a year and a half due to Tommy John. Any chance the New York Yankees had of making it back to the World Series went out the window the moment the news broke that Cole was done for the season and needed Tommy John. Because without him being the anchor in that rotation, the Yankees got no chance. You cannot honestly sit up and tell me objectively with full sincerity, confidence, and intellectual integrity that the New York Yankees are even as good of a team, let alone better than last year's team with a compromised Giancarlo Stanton, no Juan Soto, and a compromised out for the season Garrett Cole. You cannot be an honest human being and tell me that this Yankee team going into this year is as good, if not for some preposterous reason, better than last year's. You can't sell me that. Missing their ace, Stanton being out till God knows how long. Oh, by the way, you're missing, how can I forget, missing your and American League's Rookie of the Year in Louis Hill. So you're without your ace, you're without last year's Rookie of the Year, you're without Stanton for God knows how long, and oh, by the way, you lost one so in free agency. Who in the hell in their right mind thinks that the New York Yankees are going to be as good of a team, if not better, and for some despicable reason, the quote-unquote team to beat in the American League, based on that information I just gave you? And all the talent you can throw at me, again, it's a lot of ifs. Devin Williams, nice pickup. Goldie, Cody Bellinger, that move could explode in a Yankees face by Easter if things don't get out to the right. Don't start off on the right foot to start the year next week. That move could blow up in their face by Cinco de Mayo. And knowing the Yankees' luck, it probably could, knowing them. This is the team that stole quietly, as quiet as it was, kicked the can throughout the course of the offseason, and for some ridiculous reason didn't cut ties with DJ LeMahieu. And then they open up camp. Oh, he's got issues with his calf. It's an old-ass man in his 30s that can't hit his way out of a paper bag. Why do you all insist on continuing to carry this dead weight to prove a point? This is dumb. And if you sit there and give me, well, who is the favorite to win the American League, Jai? Well, honestly, I don't know. That was a topic on my show sheet I wanted to discuss. I don't know. To be different, I'd like to pick the Red Sox, but the Red Sox, for whatever the reason, they dealing with an injury right out the gate, one of their starting pitchers before the season starts. And then on top of that, this is a team that historically forgets how to play baseball in the month of August and September. So until they prove to me that they can be consistent in all phases of the game, hitting, base running, defense, starting pitching, bullpen, I can't go all in with the Red Sox. Blue Jays is going to be on a firing sale come deadline time. Rays, they don't even have a home. They'll be competitive. It won't be great. The Guardians, Tigers, Royals are all neck and neck in the AL Central comedy of mid. The West, who am I getting? Mariners have a damn good pitching staff. They can't hit. Julio Rodriguez can't hit. The A's, no. Angels, Rangers, could see it. Got the best manager in the game, pound for pound, but their offense has to get back to form from 2023, and they got to stay healthy. And they're putting a lot of eggs into the basket of Jacob deGrom in 2025 to anchor that rotation, which is ask any Met fan, is a game of Russian roulette. Houston Astros lost Kyle Tucker over the offseason and are not the same Houston Astros team of old. Who am I picking? What, my team? And again, don't get it twisted. The Yankees' shortcomings do not help the Orioles whatsoever and vice versa. They don't. But the Orioles, even if you want to just break it down by parts of the roster, the Orioles lineup on their worst day is better top to bottom 1 through 9 than the Yankees. Matter of fact, I looked at the Orioles, projected opening day starting lineup because they put out a little contest, fill out your desired Orioles opening day lineup, and you'll, win tickets or a ticket voucher to a game somewhere down the road in the season, blah, blah. This is from the team that they emailed me last week. And I'm having fun putting together my little, if I was Brandon Hyde for a day, what my opening day starting lineup would be next week against Toronto. And I got done and I looked at it 1 through 9. And I said, damn, you can put even the guys that are hitting 6 through 9, you can shuffle it in a way where you could bat them 1 through 4, 1 through 5, and it wouldn't be a sin. I'm looking like, damn, Mullins, Mountcastle, O'Hearn. Here's here's Adley. Look at the outfield talent. I mean, you could go. I mean, Kowser, Kierstead. You can go with with obviously having Mullins in center field. You can go if you are in love with Tyler O'Neill. You can plug him in there. You up and down the lineup. Yankees, it's one guy you can hang your hat on, and the rest, if you're a Yankee fan, hit your knees and pray they have a solid season. If they do have a solid season, hit your knees and pray that they don't get hurt in the midst of like a 9-game road trip or something like that. And they're going to be out for 3 weeks to a month, 2 months, if not 3. But Cole and Stanton's injuries, they don't help the Orioles. Kobe Mayo just started hitting his way out of a paper bag at Sarasota within the last few days. He ain't going to start the season at the major league level. They sent him back down to AAA. And he couldn't hit. And he was not just bad, he was pathetic at the major league level for us last year. So he's back down in the minors. And you have Andrew Kittledge, the reliever they got from St. Louis. And then Grayson Rodriguez, who we was told was going to be the new ace since we let Corbin Burns walk for a bag of peanuts. Those 2 guys are going to start the season on the IL. And we won't see Kittledge for, I think, like the first 2.5 months of the year. Won't see Grayson until maybe at the earliest Jackie Robinson Day, best case scenario. Approximately. Who knows? Is literally there is 8 days before the other 28 teams start the season, and I have zero clue who in the hell I'm gonna pick to win the American League. In previous years, I have a good idea. It's gonna be the Yankees, it's gonna be the Astros, I have no idea who I'm gonna pick. I have no clue. Rangers, Red Sox, Orioles. Go Astros again. Maybe catch lightning in a bottle. They'll learn how to hit a baseball and pick them, even though they had a quiet ass offseason. I don't know who I'm going to pick. I do not know who I'm going to pick to win the American League. I have no clue. Maybe you do, but I sure as hell don't. In terms of the Tokyo series, the only thing to say about that is the Dodgers are going to beat the piss damn near out of every single team they face. They just are. Their lineup is stacked. I mean, they got so much freaking talent. up and down that order, man. It is ungodly. The starting pitching is going to carry them. The only thing with the Dodgers got to worry about when their offense does go into rest with their starting pitching carrying them. The only thing I got to worry about is their starters staying healthy throughout the course of a 162. Because if I know one thing, money does not discriminate when it comes to health, whether that be real life with the pandemic, like we learned 5 years ago, or even in sports. You'll just have an expensive ass uh, injured list at the end of the day, because that's the key with the Dodgers, that they got to be able to stay healthy. That if their starting pitcher can stay healthy, they could probably break the 0-1 Seattle Mariners record for the most wins in a single regular season. Sasaki threw gas, was magnificent. Only threw 3 innings, struck out 3 batters, walked the ballpark, which you didn't like. Got to work on his control. His first start of the year only went 3. The adrenaline's flowing. He's in his homeland. It's a month, two is not a month, but a week and a half before the actual regular season in baseball here in America is supposed to start. So you give him a little bit of a mulligan. Fact of the matter of it is, he only surrendered the 1 run. That was the walk with the bases loaded. Avoided the big time damage there earlier this morning. So, I mean, the Dodgers will win a lot of games by the final score of 6-3 and by the final score of 4-1, like we saw on Tuesday morning. I mean, the Chicago Cubs offense, man, when they went into a rut, they couldn't find the exit to get themselves out of it. And I understand it's the Dodgers. I understand their starting rotation's legit. They got a damn good bullpen. They went out there and threw money at everything that moved, and essentially damn near bought a bullpen over the course of the offseason, highlighted by bringing in Tanner Scott. But if you can't find a way to manufacture some offense, they're going to be in a nice little heaping world of trouble, because also they didn't put on a defensive masterclass under any sets of circumstances in their 4-1 loss on Tuesday morning. I mean, did they work on fielding a ground ball? I understand the turf plays fast, but for some of those guys that never played there before, but did they work on a ground ball in Arizona during camp? Did they go through a ground ball drill? They were sloppy as hell defensively on Tuesday morning. 2 errors. Arguably could have had a third. Again, 2 games in, don't want to overreact, but my 2 cents from the games in Tokyo. And you guys know how I feel. I think the international games for every sport, not just the NFL, but baseball, NBA, it's a crock of shit. Play the damn games here in America. And if you're going to play them overseas, can you put them at a time that we can see them? Not 6 o'clock in the morning, dragging our asses out of bed, getting ready to go to work, and we work in an environment where we can't see the rest of the game. I mean, well, what are we doing here, people? What the Manfred again? He don't halfway. I get the feeling he don't halfway give a shit to begin with. Anyway, but can we get serious and lock in, please? Is that too much to ask? You're going to put 2 games in Tokyo mid-March, week of the NCAA tournament, no less. Bad enough your normal regular opening day gets swamped because it falls on the Sweet 16 Thursday. Now, granted, you have the afternoon to yourself, but on the national sports landscape, Sweet 16 overlaps the MLB open day on a national standpoint. But it's just typical baseball. Typical baseball. Anyway, good show. Getting late on YouTube. Decided to do something different. You guys let me know how you like it. Until next time, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the J Shield. Why not? Monday, recap the first 4 days of the NCAA tournament, and I will give you urinating tree. Don't forget, next week, NFL free agency. Help me preview the baseball season. I give you my MLB predictions, the works. You know how we do it over here. Until Monday, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the beginning of the madness. We are out.